Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about my birth experience. As you can tell by the title of the video, I did have a C-section, so I'm going to be talking about my birth experience and a little bit about what you guys can expect if you're thinking you might have one or if you have one planned. So I had a scheduled C-section because my daughter was breech for the entirety of my pregnancy, basically. So if you don't know, I have a rare uterine malformation called uterus didelphys, and that basically means that I have two uteruses. So if you want to know more about that, I do have more videos on my channel that you guys can check out. Basically, because of this malformation, it made it really hard for my daughter to flip head down. So she was stuck breech for the whole pregnancy. So my OB told me that I could do a breech birth if I wanted to, but that kind of freaked me out a little bit. No offense to anyone who's done a breech birth. That's awesome. I'm not brave enough to do that. So I decided to opt for the C-section. So we ended up scheduling my C-section for 38 weeks. I wasn't super scared leading up to it. Birth and all that kind of thing doesn't really freak me out. I got more stressed out as I got closer to it, especially the morning of. I did get a little bit nervous. So basically, the morning of the C-section, it was scheduled for 8:30 in the morning, and we had to be there 2 hours before, so we got there around 6:30. And basically, when I got there, they just hooked me up with the IV, had to get my gown, and ended up just doing a lot of waiting around. I talked with the anesthesiologist. He kind of went over what to expect and kind of went over the risks of things. Basically, I'll just skip to when I went to the operating room. So in the operating room, my husband had to stay out while they kind of got me hooked up and gave me my spinal tap and everything. So they kind of had me sit up on the table and they put the spinal tap. She's just playing with her toys over there. So they gave me my spinal tap, and I guess that's just an epidural. I don't know if that's the same thing or not, but basically they put the anesthesia in my spine, and that actually didn't hurt at all. I was expecting that to be super painful, but I hardly felt it at all. It was really crazy though, because as soon as they gave me the drug, I started going numb right away. Like, they had to rush me to lay down because everything below my chest was starting to go numb, and they kind of wanted to get me laying down so I wouldn't like fall off the table or anything. I had never experienced, my body going numb and paralyzed like that. So that was really crazy, and it happened super fast. It was really cool because I could actually feel the numbness setting in. So they laid me down, and basically they opened my gown and started painting on my stomach, some like orange stuff. I don't know what it was, but I was starting to get worried because I could feel that, and I thought that I was going to feel the incision because I could feel them painting on my stomach, and I started to get really nervous. And I addressed my concern. I was like, I can still feel that, and they assured me that it was fine and told me that they had already made the incision, and I didn't even realize that they had. So I didn't feel anything. You don't really have to worry about feeling anything, so yeah. So once they had made the incision, they told my husband that he could come back in. They had him sitting down next to me, which was really nice because I loved having him next to me during that procedure. And the anesthesiologist was on my left, and he was by my head making sure that I wasn't getting nauseous, and if I did, he'd give me some medication for it. But he was sitting next to us, and I remember him saying, well, you're gonna be parents in just a couple minutes here. And just hearing him say that was so wild. Like, this is our first baby, by the way. So it's all super new to us. And when he said that, like, my husband started getting really lightheaded, and I started getting nervous and really excited. I don't know, it was the craziest, most indescribable feeling knowing that your baby is going to be born within the next couple minutes. So it happened super fast, and in no time baby was out and crying, and I was sobbing. My husband he's not a sobber. He did say he got close to crying, which I thought was cute. They brought the baby around the curtain and showed me. I only saw her for only like 2 seconds, and then they pulled her away to go clean her off and to, do some tests to make sure that she's doing well. So Dason went off with the baby and I just kind of laid there getting stitched up. I think that's one of the downsides of getting a C-section is you don't get to bond with your baby right away. They don't like put your baby on your chest right away. It took probably 15 minutes for them to stitch me up, and I started getting really nauseous. I ended up throwing up while all of that was happening. My husband didn't even notice. He was obviously too preoccupied. But yeah, and then after about 10 minutes they brought my daughter over and put her on my chest and we got to snuggle a little bit. But I was feeling really weak, so I couldn't hold her for very long. Then we went back to recovery room and I basically just got to bond and cuddle with my baby skin to skin and everything. And we got to try breastfeeding for the first time. This was all within just maybe half an hour. And I got to try breastfeeding her for the first time and she latched right away. And it was just a really awesome bonding experience. But meanwhile, I was still completely paralyzed from the chest down and I couldn't feel anything. I was starting to be able to wiggle my toes a little bit, but otherwise I couldn't feel anything. It was the craziest feeling. So one thing I didn't really know about is they do give you a catheter, which was nice because then I didn't have to get up to go to the bathroom, but it was kind of gross and uncomfortable. So I was paralyzed for, I can't remember specifically, but I think it was like 5 or 6 hours I was paralyzed, like couldn't really move anything and the numbness was still there. So I wasn't allowed to get up until the numbness had completely worn off. The first time I got up to walk, that was fun. I tried standing up for the first time and blood, sorry, this is TMI, but blood fell out of me and hit the floor. It was so much. People don't tell you how much you bleed with C-sections. Some people think you don't even bleed at all. But yeah, you bleed probably just as much as you would with a vaginal birth. But because I'd been sitting for so long, there was so much blood that kind of like collected in that area. And then as soon as I stood up, it just all gushed out of me. It was so gross. And I'm not going to lie, it was really hard to walk. I was taking like tiny baby steps. It took me like the bathroom was in my hospital room and it took me probably like 2 or 3 minutes just to wobble over there. It was quite the ordeal. When I had my first look at my C-section incision, it was surprisingly a lot cleaner and nicer looking than I expected. They used staples to close me up, but obviously they had stitching all the way through all the different layers of flesh. Ugh. Walking hurt and was quite uncomfortable for the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. I was in the hospital for 3 days. I had nurses coming in my room every few hours to drug me up again to make sure that things didn't get too painful. That's really important if you're getting a C-section. Stay on top of your meds because it really hurts if you don't. I know in the couple days after I was recovering, once I got all my feeling back and everything, and I wasn't staying on top of my meds as much, it felt like when I was getting up out of bed, it felt like my incision was ripping and it was the most disturbing feeling ever. Yeah, anyway, stay on top of your meds, really, really important. I got my staples out on the 5th day. So I got my C-section on Monday and I got my staples out on the 5th day. So I had a nurse come to my house and remove them. Didn't hurt at all, but I was quite shocked that they could take the stitches out only 5 days after. I thought it would take longer to heal, but I do wish they waited like a couple days longer, because when they took my staples out, this is also TMI, but my incision started to open a little bit, so she had to tape it closed. So that was a little disturbing. I wish they would have just not rushed into it so much, but oh well. All right, one thing that I had heard about but didn't know if it would be true was the little pooch you get above your C-section scar. Mine was really bad at the beginning. It's been about 3 months since I got my C-section now, so it's gone down quite a bit, but it's still there and I'm not sure it will ever quite go away. Another thing about my scar is that it is like totally numb, for like an 1.5 inches above my scar. I can't feel anything, which kind of sucks and feels very weird. I remember when I was in the hospital, I had put a fresh pad on and I went back to my hospital bed and I was just kind of feeling around down there, and I was like, whoa, did my pad slide all the way up my stomach? I was like, why is it so high? And then I looked down and realized I was poking my stomach. So almost 3 months postpartum now, I do have slight sensitivity where my incision is, but hardly any at all. So it's healed really, really well. Overall, it was a good experience. It was hard, as really any birth would be. I'm sure some of you are wondering if I was disappointed about getting a C-section as opposed to doing it natural. In the beginning of my pregnancy, I knew it was a possibility that I would have to get a C-section. So it was kind of already in my head, and I knew that it was likely going to have to happen. So I think I kind of avoided the disappointment, or I guess the expectation of having a natural birth and having it change last minute. I kind of knew all along that it was probably going to happen. I wasn't disappointed, but I really do want to try for a vaginal birth next time. The C-section recovery was hard. It wasn't unbearable or unmanageable, but I didn't enjoy it. And I'm totally sure that having a natural birth is also a hard recovery and very uncomfortable, but I do want to try both and have experience doing both. And not one is better than the other or worse than the other. They're both totally beautiful and awesome. But I do want to try for both and see if I can have a vaginal birth with my double uterus and double cervix. It does give me a bit of anxiety because I don't know if my body can actually do it, but if it's possible, I definitely want to try. Anyway, I'll show you guys my C-section scar and how it's kind of healing up. So this is definitely a very attractive angle, I'm sure, but yeah, I'll just show you my postpartum belly as well has a little ways to go. Wow, it looks bad at this angle. It's not actually that bad. But yeah, I have a little ways to go with losing my extra tummy fat from pregnancy. There's my scar. It's actually pretty straight. I was surprised with how straight they made it. It's still red, but it's starting to lighten a little bit. But yeah, so this whole part up until about here is numb. So I can't feel any of this. Totally numb. You could stab me there and I wouldn't feel it. But yeah, anyway, my belly is coming along okay. I'm working on trying to get rid of that extra belly fat, but yeah. But yeah, anyway, I'm loving my postpartum body. I'm working on getting a little bit stronger and toning my body up a little bit. But yeah, I appreciate everything my body can do. And overall, I had a really good C-section experience. If you have any questions about it, comment down below and I can try to answer them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching and subscribe to my channel for more content.